Imagine Italy, a country where marble turned to art 1,000 years ago, where every hillside holds a village of amber stone, where the sea meets cliffs in 1,000 shades of blue. You cannot think of this land without seeing the Colosseum's arches catching the evening light, or the canals of Venice reflecting palaces in their still water, or the rolling hills of Tuscany covered in vineyards and cypress trees. Tonight, we will walk through the Forum when the tourists have gone and only the columns remain, standing quiet under stars. We will glide through Venetian canals as lamps begin to glow in windows, and rest in Tuscan gardens where the only sound is the wind moving through olive groves. We will find the hidden corners of Florence, the peaceful shores of the Amalfi Coast, the ancient temples of Sicily, and you will experience it all without leaving your bed. This evening, we are traveling to Italy. If you are ready to rest, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more journeys into sleep. And I would love to know, from which part of the world are you listening tonight? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's begin. We arrive in Rome as the afternoon begins its slow fade into evening. The train pulls into Termini station, and the platform stretches long and covered, the light filtering through the glass roof in columns that catch the dust floating in the air. We step down, and the station is busy but not rushed. People moving with purpose but without urgency, the Roman way of doing things. Outside, the city spreads in every direction, 7 hills covered with buildings that range from ancient to medieval to modern, all mixed together, layers of history stacked upon each other like pages in a book. The air is warm and carries the scent of espresso and exhaust and something else, something harder to name, the smell of old stone perhaps, of buildings that have stood for 2,000 years. We find a taxi, and the drive takes us through narrow streets where scooters weave between cars and pedestrians, cross without looking, trusting in some unspoken agreement between all who move through this city. The light is golden now, that particular Roman light that painters have tried to capture for centuries, warm and soft, making everything glow. The Colosseum rises before us, massive and unmistakable, its arches stacked in tiers, the outer wall worn and broken in places but still standing, still dominating the landscape after nearly 2,000 years. We arrive as the day tourists are leaving, as the sun drops toward the horizon and the light begins to change. The stone, which in daylight appears tan or cream, now takes on warmer tones, becoming amber and gold, and the shadows deepen in the arches, creating patterns of light and dark that shift as the sun moves. The Colosseum was built between 70 and 80 AD, a gift from the Emperor Vespasian to the Roman people, a place for spectacles and games, and it could hold over 50,000 spectators in its tiered seats. The engineering was extraordinary for its time, with a complex system of tunnels and lifts beneath the arena floor, chambers where gladiators and animals waited before being raised into the arena. We walk around the exterior, and the wall curves away in both directions, and you realize how enormous the structure is, how much stone was quarried and transported and lifted and fitted together. The arches are each slightly different, worn differently by time and weather, and some still show the marks where metal clamps once held decorative marble in place, the marble long since stripped away and used in other buildings. We enter through one of the remaining gates, and the interior opens before us, the arena floor partially reconstructed, showing the wooden planks that once covered the underground chambers and beyond it. The seating tiers rising in semicircles, most of the seats gone now, just the stone framework remaining. Standing in the center, looking up at the tiers, you can imagine what it must have been like when the seats were full, when 50,000 voices created a roar that echoed off the walls, when the sun blazed overhead and the awnings were drawn across the top to provide shade. But now it is quiet, just a few visitors scattered through the space, their voices small and quickly absorbed by the vastness. The floor beneath our feet is modern, wooden boards laid over the ancient foundations. And through gaps in the boards, you can see down into the hypogeum, the underground area where the machinery of the games was housed. We walk to the edge and look down into these chambers, narrow corridors and small rooms, all open to the sky now, and the walls are brick, reddish, brown and worn smooth, and you can see the channels where ropes ran, where lifts were operated by teams of slaves, raising animals or scenery through trapdoors into the arena above. From the Colosseum, we walk to the Roman Forum, the ancient heart of the city, where government buildings and temples and markets once stood, where the business of empire was conducted. The Forum is a field of ruins now, columns and partial walls and foundations spread across a long valley between the Palatine and Capitoline hills. We enter as the light continues to soften, as the day's heat begins to release from the stones, and the path winds between the ruins, paved with the original Roman stones in places, large irregular blocks fitted together, worn smooth by 2 millennia of feet. The Temple of Saturn stands at one end, 8 columns still upright, supporting a fragment of the pediment, and the columns are massive, each one carved from a single piece of stone, their surfaces fluted with vertical grooves, their capitals decorated with acanthus leaves. Nearby, the Arch of Septimius Severus rises white against the darkening sky, its surface carved with scenes of military victories, figures of soldiers and emperors rendered in relief, and though the details are worn, you can still make out faces, weapons, the musculature of horses. The Via Sacra, the sacred way, runs through the length of the Forum, the main street of ancient Rome, the route of triumphal processions and religious ceremonies. We walk along it slowly, and the stones beneath our feet are the same stones that Roman sandals walked, that chariot wheels rolled over, that armies marched across when returning victorious from campaigns. The stones are uneven now, dipped and tilted by settling earth, and they are worn smooth in the centers where the most traffic passed, grooved in places by wheel ruts. On either side, the ruins continue, temples to gods whose worship has long ceased, basilicas where legal cases were argued before judges who have been dust for 18 centuries, markets where goods from across the empire were bought and sold. The scale is difficult to grasp. These are not small buildings. They were meant to impress, to demonstrate the power and permanence of Rome, and even in ruins, they succeed. A single column, standing alone, can be 20 feet around, 50 feet tall, and you realize that moving such stones, lifting them, setting them in place, required engineering and organization on a scale that staggers. Near the center of the Forum stands the House of the Vestal Virgins, the residence of the priestesses who tended the sacred flame of Vesta, goddess of the hearth. The house was built around a central courtyard, and the courtyard still exists, rectangular and open to the sky, with a long reflecting pool running down its center. The pool is shallow, just a few inches deep, and it mirrors the sky and the columns that line the courtyard on both sides. The columns once supported a covered walkway, a portico where the Vestals could walk protected from sun and rain, and between the columns, statues of the chief Vestals once stood, honored for their service. Some of the statues remain, headless mostly, their bodies draped in stone togas, and their pedestals bear inscriptions with names and titles. We sit on a stone bench beside the pool, and the water is perfectly still, and the reflection of the columns creates the illusion that the building extends downward as well as upward, that there is a mirror world beneath the surface. The Vestals lived here for 30 years, entering the order as children and leaving as middle-aged women, their lives devoted to maintaining the sacred flame that was believed to protect Rome. If the flame went out, it was considered a terrible omen, and the Vestal responsible faced severe punishment. We climb the Palatine Hill, one of the 7 hills of Rome, the hill where the city was supposedly founded by Romulus, where the emperors built their palaces. The path winds upward through gardens and ruins, and the vegetation is lush, umbrella pines and cypress trees, wildflowers growing in the cracks between ancient stones. At the top, the ruins of the imperial palaces spread across the hillside, walls and arches and floors, some standing to their full height, others reduced to foundations. The house of Augustus is here, the residence of Rome's first emperor. And though much of it is closed to preserve the frescoes inside, you can see through gates into rooms painted with delicate images of gardens and garlands, colors that have somehow survived 2,000 years. From the hilltop, the view extends across the forum and the city beyond, rooftops and domes, and the distant shapes of hills. The city is lighting up now, windows glowing yellow, street lamps coming on, and the sky is deepening from blue to violet, and the first stars are appearing, faint and hard to see against the ambient light, but there, if you look carefully. We leave the forum as night settles completely, and we make our way to the Pantheon, one of the best preserved buildings from ancient Rome, a temple originally built to honor all the gods. The Pantheon sits in a small piazza, and approaching it, you see first the portico, a porch supported by massive granite columns, each one over 40 feet tall, brought to Rome from Egypt nearly 2,000 years ago. The columns are grey and smooth, and they support a triangular pediment with an inscription that credits Marcus Agrippa, though the building we see today was actually rebuilt by Emperor Hadrian in the 2nd century AD. We pass through the portico and enter the interior, and the space opens into a perfect dome, 143 feet in diameter and exactly the same in height, a perfect hemisphere. The dome is concrete, poured section by section, and at its apex, there is an opening called the oculus, a circular hole 30 feet across, open to the sky. Through the oculus, we can see the night sky, stars visible through the opening, and moonlight streams down in a shaft that moves across the floor as the earth turns. The floor is marble, arranged in geometric patterns, circles and squares, and the moonlight illuminates a circle that shifts slowly, imperceptibly, marking time. We walk through narrow streets to the Trevi Fountain, tucked into a small piazza where 3 streets converge, the fountain filling one entire wall of the square. During the day, the fountain is surrounded by crowds, people tossing coins and taking photographs. But now, late in the evening, the crowd has thinned, and we can approach the edge without fighting through bodies. The fountain is Baroque, built in the 1730s, a theatrical composition of marble figures and rushing water. Neptune stands in the center, in a chariot pulled by seahorses, and around him, allegorical figures represent abundance and health, and the whole scene emerges from a cliff of carved stone. Water flows from multiple points, cascading down rocks, filling the basin below with a constant rushing sound that echoes off the surrounding buildings. The fountain is lit from below, and the light turns the water and marble a warm gold, and the sound of the water is hypnotic, constant but not monotonous, a white noise that fills the space. According to tradition, if you toss a coin into the fountain over your left shoulder with your right hand, you will return to Rome, and every day, thousands of coins are thrown, and they are collected and donated to charity. We cross the Tiber River to Trastevere, a neighborhood on the West Bank, known for its narrow medieval streets and neighborhood feel. The streets here are not straight but winding, following paths that were established in the Middle Ages or earlier, and the buildings lean close together, their upper floors nearly touching across the narrow lanes. Laundry still hangs from some windows, white sheets and colored clothing drying in the night air, and the walls are painted in warm earth tones, ochre and terracotta and faded pink. Small restaurants line the streets, their tables spilling onto the sidewalks, and the smell of cooking drifts from kitchens, garlic and tomatoes and basil, olive oil and bread. We walk without destination, just wandering, and the streets lead us past small churches, their doors open, interiors lit by candles, and past fountains where water trickles into stone basins, and past piazzas where groups of young people sit on steps, talking and laughing quietly. The neighborhood feels lived in, not a museum but a place where people actually reside, where life continues as it has for centuries, a slower rhythm than the tourist center across the river. In the heart of Trastevere, we find the Basilica of Santa Maria, one of the oldest churches in Rome, founded in the 3rd century. The facade is plain brick, but above the entrance, a mosaic glows in the artificial light, gold and blue and red, depicting the Virgin Mary surrounded by 10 women holding lamps, 5 with flames and 5 without, a reference to a biblical parable. We enter, and the interior is dim, lit by candles and a few electric lights, and the nave stretches ahead, lined with ancient columns taken from Roman buildings, each column different from its neighbors, granite and marble, smooth and fluted. The ceiling is wooden, decorated with golden coffers, and the floor is marble in geometric patterns. At the far end, the apse is covered entirely in mosaics, 12th century work showing Christ and Mary enthroned, surrounded by saints, and the gold background catches the candlelight and seems to glow from within. The mosaics are made of tiny glass tesserae, each piece set at a slightly different angle to catch and reflect light, and the effect is luminous, creating the impression that the figures are not painted but actually present, lit by their own internal light. We leave the city centre and travel south to the Via Appia Antica, the Appian Way, one of the earliest and most important Roman roads, built in 312 BC. The road once stretched from Rome to the southern port of Brindisi, over 350 miles, and it was built so well that long stretches are still in use today. We arrive at a section that has been preserved as a park, and we walk along the ancient paving stones, large blocks of volcanic basalt fitted together, worn smooth by 2,000 years of traffic. The road is lined with umbrella pines, their canopies spreading wide and flat, and beyond the trees, the Roman Campagna stretches away, fields and ruins scattered across the landscape. Along the road, tombs and monuments stand at intervals, because Roman law forbade burial within the city walls, so the wealthy built elaborate tombs along the major roads where they would be seen by travelers. Some of these tombs are large, the size of small houses, their walls still standing, their inscriptions still readable in places. We walk slowly, and the only sounds are our footsteps on the stones and the wind moving through the pine branches, and the sense of history is overwhelming, the realization that this road has been here for over 2 millennia, that countless feet have walked this same path, heading south toward distant cities. Beneath the Appian Way, tunnels extend for miles, carved into the soft volcanic rock, and these are the catacombs, ancient Christian burial sites. The catacombs were used from the 2nd to the 5th centuries, when Christians, not allowed to cremate their dead as Romans did, needed space for burials. We enter one of the catacombs, descending a stairway into the cool darkness, and a guide leads us through narrow passages, the walls on both sides carved with niches, loculi, where bodies were laid wrapped in cloth and sealed with stone or marble slabs. The passages branch and connect, a maze extending through multiple levels, and in some places, the tunnels widen into chambers, cubicular, family burial rooms decorated with early Christian frescoes. The frescoes are faded, the colors muted by time and moisture, but you can still make out images, the Good Shepherd carrying a lamb, fish symbols, anchors, doves, the iconography of early Christianity. The air is cool and damp, and the silence is complete, broken only by our footsteps and the guide's voice. And the sense of being surrounded by the dead is powerful but not frightening, more like being in the presence of history, of people who lived and died believing in something enough to be buried here together. We return to Termini station as midnight approaches, and the station is quieter now, fewer travelers, the shops mostly closed. Our train is waiting on the platform, bound north toward Florence, and we board and find our compartment, a small space with bench seats that convert to beds, a window looking out onto the platform. The train begins to move, sliding smoothly out of the station, and Rome falls away behind us, the lights of the city fading as we enter the darkness of the countryside. The rhythm of the train is soothing, the click of the wheels on the rails, the gentle swaying of the car, and we settle in for the journey, watching through the window as the landscape passes, mostly invisible in the dark, but occasionally illuminated by the lights of a small town or a farm, brief glimpses of life before the darkness returns. We arrive in Florence as dawn breaks, the sky lightening from black to deep blue to pale gold. The train pulls into Santa Maria Novella station, named after the church that stands nearby, and we step onto the platform into cool morning air that smells of coffee and pastry. Florence is smaller than Rome, more compact, a city built on a human scale, and we walk from the station toward the center, following signs toward the Duomo. The streets are narrow and mostly empty at this hour, the shops still closed, shutters drawn, and the buildings rise on both sides, their facades painted in warm colors, yellows and ochres and pale oranges, the plaster aged and textured. We turn a corner, and suddenly the Duomo appears, massive and impossible to miss, its dome dominating the skyline. Brunelleschi's masterpiece, a feat of engineering that still inspires wonder nearly 600 years after its completion. The dome of the Florence Cathedral is the largest brick dome ever constructed, over 300 feet tall from the ground to the lantern at its peak, and it was built without the use of a traditional wooden framework, a technique that had been lost since ancient Rome. Filippo Brunelleschi won the commission in 1420, and he spent 16 years building the dome, inventing new construction methods, designing special hoisting machines, solving problems that had stumped architects for decades. The dome is a double shell, two domes, one inside the other, with a space between them containing staircases and structural supports, and the bricks are laid in a herringbone pattern that distributes the weight and prevents collapse. The exterior is covered in terracotta tiles, and they create a warm red-orange surface that glows in the morning light. And the lantern at the top, added after Brunelleschi's death, is white marble decorated with classical details. We walk around the cathedral, and from every angle the dome dominates, and you realize that this is what defines Florence, the symbol of the city, visible from miles away, announcing the presence of this place where the Renaissance began. In front of the Duomo stands the baptistery, an octagonal building of white and green marble, much older than the cathedral, dating from the 11th century. The baptistery has 3 sets of bronze doors, but the most famous are the east doors, the ones Michelangelo called the Gates of Paradise. The doors were created by Lorenzo Ghiberti in the early 1400s, and they consist of 10 gilded bronze panels, each one depicting a scene from the Old Testament. The panels are works of sculpture, with figures rendered in relief, some nearly 3-dimensional, and the detail is extraordinary, faces individualized, clothing showing folds and texture, architecture and landscape creating depth. The gilding has worn in places, revealing the bronze beneath, but much of the gold remains, and in the morning light, the doors glow. We stand close, looking at the individual panels, at the sacrifice of Isaac, at the story of Joseph, at Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and the craftsmanship is humbling, The amount of work and skill required to create these scenes, the way art and faith combined to produce something that has lasted 600 years and will likely last 600 more. We walk through the medieval streets toward the Arno River, and the buildings crowd close, blocking the sky, and then we emerge onto the riverbank, and the view opens. The Arno flows through the center of Florence, and spanning it is the Ponte Vecchio, the old bridge, the only bridge in Florence to survive World War II intact. The bridge was built in 1345, and it is lined with shops, small structures built onto the sides of the bridge, their backs extending out over the water on wooden brackets. Originally, the shops were butchers, but in the 16th century, the Medici family, who ruled Florence, decided that butchers were too smelly and replaced them with goldsmiths and jewelers, and goldsmiths remain there today. We walk across the bridge, and the shops are closed at this hour, their shutters locked, but through windows you can see displays of gold chains and rings, bracelets and earrings, all handmade by craftsmen working in tiny workshops behind the storefronts. At the center of the bridge, the shops pause, leaving an open space where you can look down at the river, and the water is green and brown, moving slowly, reflecting the buildings on both banks, and in the distance, other bridges span the river at intervals, each one different, each one carrying its own history. Near the river stands the Uffizi, one of the great art museums of the world, housed in a U-shaped building that was originally designed as offices for Florentine magistrates in the 1560s. The Uffizi holds the world's finest collection of Italian Renaissance art, works by Botticelli and Leonardo, and Michelangelo and Raphael, paintings that defined what art could be, that established standards and techniques still studied today. We enter, and the galleries stretch through the building, room after room, and the walls are covered with paintings, some small and intimate, others massive, filling entire walls. Botticelli's Birth of Venus hangs in one room, the goddess rising from the sea on a shell, her hair flowing, her pose graceful and modest, and the colors are soft pastels, pinks and greens and golds, and the painting has an ethereal quality, as if Venus is not quite real but a dream of beauty. In another room, Leonardo's Annunciation shows the angel Gabriel appearing to Mary, the scene set in a garden with precise architectural details and plants rendered with botanical accuracy. The paintings are separated by periods and schools, but what strikes you is the continuity, the way each artist built on what came before, how techniques were shared and refined, how the pursuit of beauty and truth drove these men to create works that transcended their time. The Accademia Gallery holds Michelangelo's David, arguably the most famous sculpture in the world, carved from a single block of Carrara marble between 1501 and 1504. The statue stands over 17 feet tall, depicting the biblical David at the moment before his battle with Goliath, his body tense, his gaze focused, his hand holding the stone he will use to fell the giant. We enter the hall where David stands, and the sculpture is at the far end, positioned to be seen from a distance, and even from far away, the presence is overwhelming. As we approach, the details become visible, the musculature of the arms and torso, the veins in the hands, the tension in the neck, the expression on the face, determined and calm. Michelangelo was only 26 when he completed David, and the sculpture established him as the greatest artist of his generation. The marble is white, almost translucent in places, and the surface is smooth, polished to a sheen that makes the stone seem soft, like skin rather than rock. The statue was originally placed in front of the Palazzo Vecchio, Florence's town hall, as a symbol of the city's Republican government, but it was moved to the Accademia in 1873 to protect it from weather, and a replica now stands in the original location. We leave Florence in the late morning, renting a car and driving south into the Tuscan countryside. the landscape that appears in countless paintings and photographs. Rolling hills covered with vineyards and olive groves, cypress trees standing sentinel along ridgelines, farmhouses of honey-coloured stone. The roads are narrow and winding, following the contours of the land, climbing hills and descending into valleys, and around each curve, the view changes. Another hillside, another cluster of buildings, another vineyard stretching in neat rows. The sky is wide and blue, dotted with white clouds that move slowly across the sun, creating patterns of light and shadow on the hills. We drive with the windows open, and the air smells of grass and earth and something floral, perhaps lavender or wild herbs, and the temperature is perfect, warm but not hot, with a breeze that moves through the car and cools our skin. We stop in a small hill town, one of hundreds scattered across Tuscany, medieval settlements built on hilltops for defense, surrounded by walls. The town we choose is called Montepulciano, and we park outside the walls and walk through a stone gate into the old center. The streets are steep and narrow, paved with stones worn smooth and slippery, and the buildings rise 3 or 4 stories on both sides, their facades plain but elegant, windows shuttered against the midday sun. The town is quiet, siesta time, shops closed, residents inside escaping the heat, and we climb toward the main square, pausing occasionally to catch our breath and look back at the view. The valley spread below, fields and vineyards in patches of green and gold. The main square, the Piazza Grande, sits at the highest point, surrounded by the town hall and the cathedral, and a well stands in the center, its stone basin carved with the Medici coat of arms. We sit on the cathedral steps, and the square is empty except for a cat sleeping in a patch of shade, and the silence is profound, broken only by the distant sound of a church bell marking the hour. Tuscany is wine country, and the hills are covered with vineyards producing Chianti, Brunello, Vino Nobile, wines that have been made here for centuries using grapes that thrive in this soil and climate. We visit a winery, a family-owned estate where the same family has been making wine for 8 generations, and the owner shows us the vineyards, row after row of grapevines, their leaves deep green, their fruit beginning to ripen, clusters of grapes hanging heavy from the vines. The harvest will come in a few weeks, and then the real work begins, crushing the grapes, fermenting the juice, aging the wine in oak barrels in cool cellars beneath the farmhouse. The owner explains the process with pride, not just describing what they do, but why, how the limestone soil affects the flavor, how the altitude and sun exposure determine ripeness, how tradition and innovation balance in the winemaking. We taste a few wines, sipping slowly, and the flavors are complex, layers of fruit and earth and oak, and the wine feels like an expression of this place, the hills and sun and generations of knowledge condensed into a bottle. Cypress trees are everywhere in Tuscany, tall, narrow evergreens that stand like exclamation points against the sky. They line roads and driveways, marking the paths to farmhouses, and they cluster in groves on hilltops, dark green against the lighter green of the fields. The cypress is a Mediterranean tree, native to this region, and it has been planted here for thousands of years, used by Romans and Etruscans before them. The trees grow straight and tall, some reaching over 80 feet, and their shape is distinctive, narrow and columnar, the branches growing close to the trunk. In cemeteries, cypresses are often planted, symbols of mourning and eternity, and their dark green provides a somber note. But in the countryside, they are simply part of the landscape, as essential to the Tuscan view as the hills themselves, providing vertical elements in a horizontal landscape, drawing the eye upward. We drive to Siena, a city that rivals Florence in beauty and history, and we arrive in the afternoon, parking outside the medieval walls and walking through narrow streets into the heart of the city. The Piazza del Campo opens before us, a shell-shaped square that slopes downward toward the Palazzo Pubblico, the town hall. The piazza is paved with brick in a herringbone pattern, divided into 9 sections representing the 9 members of the council that once governed Siena, and the bricks are worn smooth by centuries of feet. The square is lined with cafes and shops, their tables and umbrellas creating a border around the open center, and people sit on the brick, talking and reading and simply resting. Twice each summer, the piazza becomes a racetrack for the Palio, a horse race that dates back to the Middle Ages, but today it is simply a gathering place, a communal living room where the city comes together. We sit on the bricks in the center, and the warmth of the stone seeps through our clothes, and we watch the shadows move across the facade of the Palazzo Pubblico as the sun arcs across the sky. From Siena, we drive north to San Gimignano, a small town famous for its medieval towers. In the Middle Ages, wealthy families in Italian towns built towers as symbols of power and prestige, competing to build the tallest, and at one point, San Gimignano had over 70 towers. Most have collapsed or been demolished, but 14 remain, and they give the town a distinctive skyline, the towers rising above the roofline like a miniature Manhattan. We enter through the town gate, and the main street climbs toward the central piazza, lined with shops selling ceramics and wine and saffron, which is grown locally. The piazza opens around a well, and the towers cluster nearby, square stone structures with narrow windows, their tops crenellated like castles. We climb one of the towers, the Torre Grossa, the tallest remaining tower at nearly 180 feet, and the stairs are narrow and steep, winding up inside the walls, and the climb is tiring, our legs burning by the time we reach the top. But the view is worth it. The Tuscan countryside spreading in all directions, hills and fields and distant towns, and below, the red tile roofs of San Gimignano, and the other towers standing at different heights, their stones golden in the afternoon light. Olive trees are as common in Tuscany as grapevines, their silvery green leaves covering hillsides, their twisted trunks evidence of great age, some trees over 500 years old and still producing fruit. We walk through an olive grove, the ground beneath the trees dry and rocky, and the trees are gnarled and irregular, their bark rough and grey, their branches spreading wide. Olives grow in clusters, small and green now, though they will darken as they ripen, and the harvest will come in late autumn, families gathering to pick the fruit by hand or with rakes, spreading nets beneath the trees to catch the olives as they fall. The oil pressed from these olives is extra virgin, cold pressed, a golden green liquid that tastes of grass and pepper, and it is used in everything, drizzled over bread, mixed into pasta, poured over salads. The grove is peaceful, the leaves rustling in the breeze, and the light filtering through the canopy creates patterns on the ground, and we rest against a tree trunk, feeling the rough bark against our backs, watching the shadows shift. We leave Tuscany and drive north, crossing the Apennines, the mountain range that runs down the spine of Italy, and descending into the Po Valley, the broad flat plain of northern Italy. The landscape changes from hills to flatness, from stone farmhouses to industrial agriculture, from cypress and olive to corn and rice fields. We drive through the afternoon and into the evening, and as the sun sets, we arrive in Venice, or rather, we arrive at the edge of Venice, because cars cannot enter the city itself. We park in a garage on the mainland and take a water taxi across the lagoon, the boat cutting through the calm water, and ahead, Venice rises from the sea, a city built on over 100 small islands, connected by bridges, its buildings seeming to float on the water. The sky is fading from orange to purple, and the lights of the city are coming on, reflecting on the water, and the silhouettes of domes and bell towers appear against the sky, and the scene is surreal, dreamlike, a city that should not exist but does, The water taxi enters the Grand Canal, the main waterway that winds through Venice in a reverse shape, and we travel slowly, the boat's wake spreading behind us, lapping against the buildings that line both sides. The buildings are palaces, mostly, built by wealthy Venetian families in the 14th through 18th centuries, and they rise directly from the water, their foundations submerged, their facades decorated with Gothic and Renaissance details, pointed arches and balconies and coloured marble. The water is green and murky, and it smells of salt and seaweed, and it is not still but moving, rising and falling with the tide, because Venice is built in a lagoon connected to the Adriatic Sea. Gondolas pass, the gondoliers standing at the rear, pushing and steering with a single oar, their movements practiced and efficient, and the gondolas are black and sleek, their prows decorated with metal ornaments shaped like the prow of ancient ships. The canal is busy with traffic, water taxis, and delivery boats and private boats, all navigating without lanes or signals, somehow avoiding collisions through a combination of skill and custom. We disembark near Street Marks Square, the heart of Venice, and we walk through narrow streets, following signs that point toward San Marco, the streets barely wide enough for two people to pass, and then suddenly the square opens before us, vast and rectangular, surrounded by arcaded buildings. Street Mark's Basilica stands at the eastern end, its facade a riot of domes and mosaics and marble, Byzantine in style, unlike anything else in Italy. The square is still busy, despite the hour, tourists and locals moving across the paving stones, pigeons scattering and regrouping, and orchestras play outside the cafes that line the square, their music competing and blending. We walk toward the basilica, and the facade glows in the artificial light, gold mosaics catching and reflecting the illumination, and above the main door, 4 bronze horses stand, copies of ancient Greek sculptures that were looted from Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade. The originals are inside, protected from weather, but the copies are magnificent, their musculature detailed, their poses dynamic, and they have become symbols of Venice, representing the city's history as a maritime power that connected east and west. We enter the basilica, and the interior is dark and glittering, every surface covered in mosaics, over 85,000 square feet of glass and gold tesserae, creating scenes from the Old and New Testaments. The ceiling arches upward in domes, each dome filled with images, Christ Pantocrator in the central dome, prophets and apostles in the others, and the gold backgrounds create a sense of light emanating from the images themselves. The floor is marble, laid in geometric and figurative patterns, and it is uneven, the stones having settled over centuries, creating a gentle rolling surface. The air smells of incense and age, and the light is dim, coming from candles and a few electric fixtures, and the effect is overwhelming, a space designed to inspire awe and reverence, to make the visitor feel small in the presence of the divine. We move slowly through the space, looking up at the mosaics, at the altar behind its screen of carved marble, at the Pala d'Oro, a golden altarpiece covered with hundreds of enamel plaques and precious stones, a work of Byzantine craftsmanship that is almost too rich, too elaborate, straining the limits of what seems possible. We leave the square and wander into the maze of Venice's streets and canals, walking without a map, trusting to chance to guide us. The streets are narrow and often end at canals, requiring us to cross bridges, small arched structures of stone or wood, and from the bridges we look down at the water sliding past below, dark and reflecting the lights from windows. The city is quiet away from the main tourist areas, residential, and we pass beneath lines of laundry strung between buildings, hear conversations in Italian through open windows, smell cooking, garlic and fish and wine. We are lost, But it does not matter, because every street leads somewhere interesting. A small campo with a well in the center, a church with an ornate facade, a workshop where a craftsman is still working late, visible through a window, creating something with his hands. Venice has no cars, no traffic noise, just the sound of footsteps and water and occasional voices, and the scale is human, intimate, a city built for walking, for being in rather than rushing through. We hire a gondola for a ride through the smaller canals, the Rii, and the gondolier helps us step down into the boat, seating us on cushioned benches in the center. The gondola rocks slightly as we settle, and then the gondolier pushes off, using his single oar to propel and steer the boat through the narrow waterways. The canals here are barely wider than the gondola, the buildings rising on both sides, their walls showing the effects of water and time. Plaster peeling, bricks exposed, green moss and algae growing at the waterline. We glide beneath bridges, ducking our heads, and the gondolier calls out warnings as we approach intersections, alerting any other boats to our presence. The motion is smooth and silent, just the sound of the oar entering and leaving the water, and we lean back and watch the buildings slide past, seeing Venice from the perspective it was built for, from the water. Balconies overhang the canals, flower boxes spilling blossoms, and occasionally a face appears at a window, looking down at us, and then vanishes. The gondolier does not speak, just focuses on his work, and we are grateful for the silence, the opportunity to simply experience the moment without narration. In the morning, we take a water bus to Murano, an island in the Venetian lagoon famous for glassmaking. Glassmaking has been practiced in Venice since the 10th century, but in 1291, the furnaces were moved to Murano because of fire risk, and the island has been the center of Venetian glass production ever since. We visit a glass factory, and a master glassmaker demonstrates his craft, working with a blob of molten glass on the end of a long metal pipe. He blows into the pipe, inflating the glass like a balloon, and then shapes it with tools, metal paddles and wooden blocks, turning and reheating and shaping, and within minutes, the formless blob has become a vase, delicate and translucent, its walls thin and even. He explains that the techniques have been passed down through generations, that learning to work glass takes years of apprenticeship, that even now, with modern technology, the best work is still done by hand. The furnace radiates heat, intense and uncomfortable even from several feet away, and the molten glass glows orange-red, and watching the transformation from sand and minerals to functional art is mesmerizing. From Murano, we continue to Burano, another island in the lagoon, famous for its brightly colored houses. The houses are painted in vivid hues, bright pinks and yellows and blues and greens, each house a different color from its neighbors, creating a rainbow effect along the canals. The tradition supposedly began so fishermen could see their homes from the water in fog, but it has become Burano's identity, a visual signature that attracts visitors. We walk along the canals, photographing the houses, admiring the way the colors reflect in the water, and the island is small enough to walk across in 15 minutes, a quiet community where lace making was once the main industry. Lace is still made here, intricate patterns created by hand with needle and thread, and we visit a small museum showing examples of Burano lace, tablecloths and handkerchiefs and collars, the work so fine it seems impossible that human hands could create such delicacy. We return to Venice proper and make our way to the Rialto Bridge, the oldest of the 4 bridges that span the Grand Canal, and for centuries, the only bridge connecting the 2 sides. The current bridge was built in the 1580s, replacing a wooden bridge that had collapsed, and it was designed as a single stone arch, wide enough to accommodate shops along both sides. We approach from the San Marco side, and the bridge rises ahead, white stone against the blue sky, and we climb the steps, passing shops selling jewelry and leather and Venetian masks. At the top, we pause and look down at the canal, and the view is magnificent. Palaces lining both banks, boats moving in both directions, the water catching the light and throwing it back in ripples and reflections. The bridge is crowded, even at this hour. Tourists and locals crossing, street vendors selling trinkets, artists sketching the scene. But there is something about the bridge, some quality of light or perspective, that makes the crowd seem appropriate rather than intrusive, as if the bridge has always been meant to be busy, a crossing point not just of water but of lives and stories. Near the bridge, the Rialto market spreads along the canal bank, a market that has operated here for over 1,000 years. The market is divided into sections, fish on one side, produce on the other, and we wander through, looking at the displays. The fish market is extraordinary, stalls piled with seafood from the Adriatic, octopus and squid and clams, red mullet and sea bass and sole, their scales still gleaming, their eyes clear. The vendors call out prices and jokes, their hands moving quickly as they clean and fillet, wrapping purchases in paper. The produce market is equally impressive. Pyramids of tomatoes and zucchini, bundles of herbs, basil and oregano and rosemary, their scent filling the air, and fruits arranged in careful displays, peaches and figs and grapes. The market is a working place, not a tourist attraction, though tourists certainly come. And watching the locals shop, you see a different Venice, a city that functions, that feeds itself, that continues the patterns of daily life beneath the surface of tourism. We walk to the Bridge of Sighs, a small enclosed bridge that connects the Doge's palace to the old prison. The bridge was built in 1600 and is made of white limestone with windows covered by stone bars. The name comes from the idea that prisoners, crossing from the interrogation rooms in the palace to their cells in the prison, would sigh as they caught their last glimpse of Venice through the windows. We view the bridge from the outside, from another bridge nearby, and it is small and ornate, Baroque in style, and it arches over a narrow canal, the water below dark and still. The bridge has become romantic in popular imagination, a place lovers visit, though its actual history is somber, a passage for condemned men. The contrast between the delicate architecture and the grim purpose is very Venetian, a city that has always mixed beauty and pragmatism, art and commerce, pleasure and death. Venice is famous for its masks, ornate creations worn during carnival and other festivals, a tradition that dates back to the 13th century. We visit a mask shop, one of the traditional workshops where masks are still made by hand using papier-mâché and plaster molds. The shop is small, its walls covered with masks in every imaginable design, some covering the whole face, others just the eyes, some plain white, others decorated with gold leaf and feathers and jewels. The proprietor explains that different mask styles had different purposes and meanings in Venetian society. The borta allowed anonymity while eating and drinking. The moretta was worn by women and held in place by a button clenched between the teeth. The medico della peste, with its long beak, was worn by plague doctors. The tradition declined in the 18th century, but was revived in the 1970s, and now Carnival is a major event. The city filling with people in elaborate costumes, the streets becoming theatre for 10 days. We take a train from Venice to Verona, leaving the lagoon behind and travelling west across the Veneto plain. The journey takes just over an hour, and through the window we watch vineyards and farms pass, the land flat and green, irrigation canals cutting straight lines through the fields. We arrive in Verona in the afternoon, and the city greets us with warmth and noise, busier than Venice, more modern, but with a historic centre that rivals any in Italy. Verona was a major Roman city, and much of the Roman layout remains, streets following ancient patterns, the Roman arena still standing in the main square, and the Adige River flowing through the center, spanned by Roman and medieval bridges. Verona is famous as the setting for Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and though the play is fiction, the city has embraced the connection, and a house near the Piazza della Erba has been designated as Juliet's house. The house is medieval, and in the courtyard, a bronze statue of Juliet stands, and the tradition is to touch her right breast for luck, and the bronze there is polished bright by thousands of hands. Above the courtyard, a small balcony projects from the wall, and this is supposedly Juliet's balcony, though historians agree the balcony was added in the 20th century for tourists. The courtyard walls are covered with graffiti, love notes, and names scratched and written in every language, a palimpsest of declarations and hopes. The scene is touching and slightly absurd, the mixing of literature and reality, the desire to believe in romantic love so strong that people create physical places for fictional events. We do not climb to the balcony, but we stand in the courtyard and read some of the messages, and there is something universal in them, the longing for connection, for love that lasts, for something worth believing in. In the Piazza Bra, Verona's largest square, the Roman arena dominates, a massive amphitheatre built in the 1st century AD. The arena is the 3rd largest surviving Roman amphitheatre, smaller only than the Colosseum and the arena at Capua, and it is remarkably well preserved, its outer wall mostly intact, its interior seating still usable. Today, the arena is used for opera performances during the summer festival, and on performance nights, over 20,000 people fill the seats, just as Roman crowds once filled them for gladiatorial games. We tour the arena in the afternoon, climbing the steep stone steps to the upper tiers, and the view from the top encompasses the entire city, red tile roofs and church towers and the river winding through. The stone is worn smooth by 2,000 years of feet, and the heat of the day radiates from the steps, and sitting in the upper tier, looking down at the empty arena floor far below, you can almost hear the echoes of ancient crowds, the roar of approval or disapproval, the music of an empire now silent. We take another train, this time west toward Milan, and the landscape changes again, becoming more industrial, the mountains of the Alps visible in the distance to the north. Milan is Italy's financial capital, its most modern city, a place of business and fashion and design, and arriving at Milano Centrale, the main station, the difference from Venice or Florence is immediate. The station is enormous, built in the 1930s in a fascist style that emphasizes scale and power, and the streets outside are wide and busy, traffic-heavy, buildings tall and contemporary. But Milan also has history, layers of it, and in the city centre, the medieval and Renaissance past remains, preserved and honoured despite the modernity surrounding it. Milan's cathedral, the Duomo, sits at the heart of the city, a massive Gothic structure that took nearly 6 centuries to complete. The cathedral is built of white marble, its facade a forest of spires and statues, over 3,000 of them, each one unique, and the highest point is crowned with a golden statue of the Virgin Mary visible from across the city. We arrive in the evening, and the cathedral is lit from below, the white marble glowing against the dark sky, and the piazza in front is filled with people, tourists and locals mixing, sitting on the steps, taking photographs, simply being present in this space. We enter the cathedral, and the interior is vast, able to hold 40,000 people, the nave extending seemingly forever, supported by 52 massive columns. The windows are stained glass, and even in the evening, with the sun gone, they glow faintly, colours muted but still visible. The floor is marble in geometric patterns, and the air is cool and smells of stone and incense, and the sense of scale is overwhelming, a building designed to make humans feel small, to inspire awe and humility before God. One of the unique features of Milan's cathedral is that visitors can climb onto the roof, walking among the spires and statues, and we purchase tickets and take an elevator partway up, then climb stairs to reach the roof level. The roof is a forest of marble, spires rising all around, and we walk along pathways between them, the city spreading below. The statues are everywhere, saints and angels and monsters, gargoyles with water spouts for mouths, figures frozen in prayer or contemplation. And up close, you can see the detail of the carving, the folds of clothing, the expressions on faces, the weathering of centuries. The highest spire rises above us, and at its top, the golden Madonna gleams, and from here, the Alps are visible in the distance, snow-covered peaks on the horizon. The sun is setting, and the sky is turning orange and pink, and the rooftops of Milan glow in the light, and the experience of being on the roof of the cathedral, surrounded by these sculptures, is surreal, like walking through a stone dream. In the refectory of the church of Santa Maria delle Grazie, Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper covers one wall, a mural painted between 1495 and 1498. The painting depicts the moment when Christ tells his disciples that one of them will betray him, and each disciple reacts differently, some with shock, some with denial, some leaning toward Christ, others pulling back. Leonardo painted directly on the wall, using an experimental technique that allowed him to work slowly and make changes. But the technique proved unstable, and the painting began to deteriorate almost immediately. Over the centuries, it has been restored multiple times, damaged by humidity and war, and misguided attempts at preservation, but it survives, faded but still powerful. We enter with a small group, visitors limited to 15 minutes in the room to prevent damage from breath and body heat, and the painting dominates the wall. Life-sized figures arranged around a long table, the perspective drawing the eye to Christ at the center. The colors are muted, browns and blues and reds gone pale, but the composition remains clear. The psychological drama Leonardo captured still evident in the gestures and expressions, and standing before it, you understand why this is considered one of the greatest paintings ever created. Milan's opera house, La Scala, is one of the most famous in the world. A theatre where the greatest operas have premiered, where Verdi and Puccini saw their works performed, where singers like Maria Callas achieved legendary status. The theatre was built in 1778, replacing an earlier theatre that burned, and it was designed with exceptional acoustics, the shape of the hall, and the materials used creating sound that is clear and balanced throughout the space. We tour the theatre during the day when no performance is scheduled, and the interior is elegant, tier after tier of boxes rising to the ceiling, each box draped in red velvet, the whole space decorated in gold and cream. The stage is bare, just the wooden floor visible, and standing in the orchestra section, looking toward the empty stage, you can imagine the curtain rising, the orchestra beginning, a soprano's voice filling the space, and the audience sitting wrapped in the darkness, transported by music. From Milan, we rent a car and drive north toward the Alps, and within an hour, we reach Lake Como, a Y-shaped glacial lake surrounded by mountains. The lake is deep, over 1,300 feet at its deepest point, and its water is a striking blue-green, clear and cold even in summer. Towns and villas line the shores, built by wealthy Milanese families over centuries as retreats from the city heat, and the combination of water and mountains creates scenery that has attracted visitors since Roman times. We drive along the western shore, the road hugging the mountainside, climbing and descending, and through the trees, the lake appears and disappears, each glimpse offering a different view, a different configuration of water and shore and mountain. We stop in Bellagio, a town at the point where the lake divides, and we walk along the waterfront, past hotels and cafes, past boats tied to docks, their hulls rocking gently in the water. The air is fresh and slightly cool, the mountains creating their own weather, and the sense of being in a different world, far from cities and crowds, is complete. On a promontory overlooking the lake stands Villa del Balbianello, a villa built in the 18th century and famous for its terraced gardens. We arrive by boat, the only way to reach the villa, and we dock at a small pier and climb stairs through the gardens to the villa itself. The gardens are arranged in terraces that descend toward the lake, each level planted with different species, azaleas and rhododendrons and camellias. Their blooms past now, but their foliage still lush and green. Statues stand among the plantings. Classical figures of gods and nymphs and archways frame views of the lake, the water visible through breaks in the vegetation. The villa itself is elegant, but not large, built more for beauty than grandeur, and its loggia, a covered terrace, offers one of the finest views of the lake, the water spreading away in both directions, the mountains rising behind. We sit on the loggia, and the only sounds are birds and the faint lapping of water against the shore below, and the peace is profound, a sense of being removed from time, of existing in a moment that could be from any century. We return to Milan and take a flight south to Naples, and from Naples we rent a car and drive along the coast road toward Positano. The Amalfi Coast is a stretch of coastline on the southern side of the Sorrentine Peninsula, where mountains plunge directly into the Mediterranean and towns cling to the slopes, built on terraces carved from the rock. The road, the Amalfi Drive, winds along the cliffs, narrow and twisting, with hairpin turns and sheer drops to the sea below. And driving it requires concentration and nerve, but the views are extraordinary. The sea spreading blue and infinite, the coast curving away in both directions, towns visible in the distance, white and pastel buildings clustered on the hillsides. Positano appears below us as we round a curve, a cascade of buildings tumbling down the mountainside to a small beach. The buildings painted in shades of pink and peach and yellow, their roofs terracotta, their windows bright with flowers. We park above the town and walk down steep streets and stairways, descending through the town, passing boutiques selling linen clothing and ceramics and limoncello. The streets are narrow, barely wide enough for a car, and they are paved with smooth stones, and the descent is continuous, hundreds of steps, and we are grateful to be going down rather than up. The beach, when we reach it, is narrow and pebbly, the water clear and turquoise, and small boats are pulled up on the shore, their hulls painted in bright colours. We sit at a cafe on the beach, and the sun is warm on our shoulders, and the sound of the waves is gentle, and the view back up the hillside at the town is postcard perfect, almost too beautiful to believe. We drive farther along the coast to Amalfi, the town that gives the coast its name, once a powerful maritime republic that rivaled Venice and Genoa. The town is built at the base of a deep gorge, where a river once flowed to the sea, and it spreads along a small strip of flat land, the buildings rising up the slopes on both sides. The cathedral, dedicated to St. Andrew, dominates the main square, its facade striped in black and white marble, its steps broad and steep, leading up to bronze doors cast in Constantinople in the 11th century. We climb the steps, and the doors are massive, each one divided into panels showing scenes from the lives of Christ and the saints, and the bronze is green with age, the details worn smooth in places by hands touching them over centuries. Inside, the cathedral is baroque, ornate, and gilded, but in the crypt below, the bones of St. Andrew rest in a silver reliquary, and pilgrims come from across the world to pray here. From Amalfi, we drive up into the mountains to Ravello, a town perched high above the coast, known for its gardens and its views. The drive climbs steeply, switchbacking up the mountainside, and Ravello appears suddenly, a cluster of buildings around a main square, quieter than the coastal towns, more refined. We visit Villa Ruffolo, a 13th century villa with gardens that inspired Richard Wagner when he visited in 1880. The gardens are terraced, descending the slope in levels connected by stairs and paths, and they are planted with roses and bougainvillea and cypress. And from the terrace at the edge, the view opens across the coast, the sea visible far below, and the sense of height is vertiginous, thrilling. We sit on a bench in the garden, and the air is scented with flowers, and the distant sound of the sea rises faintly, and the beauty is almost painful, too perfect, too much to take in, and we close our eyes and simply sit, letting the warmth and the scent and the sound wash over us. We take a ferry from Sorrento to Capri, an island off the tip of the peninsula, famous for its beauty and its grottos. The ferry takes 30 minutes, crossing the Bay of Naples, and the island rises from the sea. Steep cliffs and terraced gardens, white buildings clustered around small harbours. We dock at Marina Grande and take a boat tour around the island, and the captain stops at the entrance to the Blue Grotto, a sea cave where sunlight enters through an underwater opening and illuminates the water from below, creating an electric blue glow. To enter, we transfer to a small rowboat lying flat as the boatman rows us through the entrance, barely 2 feet high at low tide, and inside the cave opens into a chamber, and the water glows blue, an unnatural brilliant blue, and the effect is magical, otherworldly. The boatman sings, his voice echoing off the cave walls, and the song is in Italian, something about the sea and love, and the blue water seems to pulse with the sound, and then we row out, back into daylight, and the ordinary colours of the world seem dull by comparison. We drive south from Naples to Pompeii, the Roman city buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The site is vast, covering over 160 acres, and much of it has been excavated, revealing streets and buildings and mosaics preserved by the volcanic ash that covered them. We enter through the main gate, and the streets stretch ahead, paved with large stone blocks, wheel ruts visible in the surface, and the sidewalks are raised, allowing pedestrians to cross without stepping in the street, which was used for sewage as well as traffic. The buildings on both sides are roofless, their walls standing but their upper floors and roofs gone, and inside you can see rooms and frescoes and mosaics, homes and shops and taverns, a city frozen in time. We visit a bakery, the ovens still intact, and a thermopolium, a fast food restaurant with marble counters that held pots of food, and the House of the Faun, a large residence with a famous mosaic of Alexander the Great. And with every step, the reality of Pompeii becomes more vivid, the sense of people who lived here, who had no idea that August Day would be their last. From Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius is visible, rising above the plain, a symmetrical cone with a crater at its peak. The volcano is dormant but not extinct, and it is considered one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world because of the dense population living on its slopes and in the shadow of its threat. We drive partway up the mountain, the road climbing through vineyards that grow in the volcanic soil, which is rich in minerals and produces grapes for Lacrima Christi wine. At a parking area, we begin hiking toward the crater, the path climbing steeply, switchbacking up the slope, and the ground beneath our feet is volcanic rock, black and porous, and steam rises from vents in places, reminding us that the volcano is not dead but sleeping. At the rim, we look down into the crater, a bowl several hundred feet deep, its floor covered in rock and sparse vegetation, and the sense of power contained here is palpable, the knowledge that this mountain destroyed cities, that it could erupt again, that the peace we experience now is temporary. granted by the mountain and revocable at any moment. We drive to Sorrento, a town on the southern side of the peninsula, famous for its lemons, a variety called Sfusato Amalfitano, larger and more fragrant than ordinary lemons. The lemon groves cover the terraced slopes around the town, the trees growing beneath wooden structures covered with netting that protects the fruit from wind and birds. We walk through a grove, and the trees are heavy with lemons, bright yellow against the dark green leaves, and the scent is intense, citrus and floral and fresh. The lemons are used to make limoncello, a sweet liqueur made by steeping lemon peels in alcohol and then mixing with sugar syrup, and almost every family in Sorrento has their own recipe, their own process, claiming theirs is the best. We visit a small producer, and the owner shows us his process, the peels soaking in large glass jars, the liquid bright yellow, and he offers us a taste, and the limoncello is cold and sweet and intensely lemony, and it tastes like sunshine distilled into liquid. We drive back to Naples and board a night ferry to Sicily, the largest island in the Mediterranean, sitting at the toe of Italy's boot. The ferry is large, carrying cars and trucks and hundreds of passengers, and we have a cabin, small but adequate, with bunk beds and a porthole looking out at the sea. The ferry departs at sunset, and we stand on the deck and watch Naples recede, the city lights beginning to glow, and Vesuvius dark against the fading sky. The crossing takes 10 hours, and we sleep through most of it, the motion of the ship rocking us gently, and we wake as the ferry approaches Palermo, Sicily's capital, the city spread along a natural harbour, mountains rising behind it, the architecture reflecting the island's complex history, layers of Greek and Roman and Arab and Norman influence visible in the buildings and streets. Palermo is a city of contrasts, beauty and decay existing side by side, Baroque palaces next to crumbling tenements, grand piazzas and narrow chaotic markets. The most remarkable architecture comes from the Norman period, when Norman kings ruled Sicily in the 12th century and blended European, Arab, and Byzantine styles into something unique. We visit the Palatine Chapel inside the Norman palace, and the interior is covered entirely in golden mosaics, Byzantine craftsmen creating scenes from the Bible, but the ceiling is Arab, a wooden muqarnas with geometric patterns carved and painted, and the floor is Roman-style opus sectile, marble cut and fitted into intricate designs. The combination should not work, these different traditions and aesthetics, but it does, creating a space that feels rich and harmonious, a physical expression of Sicily's position at the crossroads of civilizations. On a hill overlooking Palermo stands Monreale Cathedral, built in the late 12th century and containing one of the finest ensembles of mosaics in the world. The interior walls are covered completely, over 70,000 square feet of golden glass tesserae, creating scenes from the Old and New Testaments, and the level of detail is extraordinary. Thousands of figures, each one unique, set against backgrounds of pure gold. We enter, and the light filtering through the windows makes the mosaics shimmer, and the gold seems to move, to pulse with life, and the effect is overwhelming. A space where art and faith merge so completely that you cannot separate one from the other. The cloister, adjacent to the cathedral, is equally impressive, a square garden surrounded by columns, each column pair different from the others, some plain, some carved with zigzags or spirals, some inlaid with coloured stone, 228 columns in total, no two the same, a display of craftsmanship that seems almost excessive, but in the context of Norman Sicily, where excess was a form of power, entirely appropriate. We drive east along Sicily's northern coast to Taormina, a town perched on a cliff overlooking the sea, with Mount Etna visible in the distance. The town's ancient theatre, built by the Greeks in the 3rd century BC and later expanded by the Romans, sits on the hillside, and its position is extraordinary, the stage backed by a view of the sea and Etna, creating a natural backdrop more beautiful than anything humans could paint. We visit in the late afternoon, and the theatre is open to visitors, and we climb to the upper tiers and sit on the ancient stone seats, looking down at the stage and out at the view. The theatre is still used for performances, concerts, and plays, and sitting here, you understand why the Greeks and Romans chose this location, not just for the view but for the acoustics. The natural amphitheatre shape carrying sound from the stage to even the highest seats. The stone is warm from the sun, and the sea breeze cools our skin, and the view of Etna, massive and snow-capped even in summer, dominates the southern horizon. Mount Etna is Europe's highest active volcano, rising over 10,900 feet, and it dominates eastern Sicily, visible from almost everywhere on this part of the island. The volcano is nearly constantly active, producing small eruptions and lava flows, though major eruptions are less frequent. We drive up the slopes, the road climbing through forests of oak and chestnut, then through barren lava fields from recent eruptions, the rock black and jagged, vegetation just beginning to colonize the edges. We reach a cable car station and ride up to near the summit, and from here the view is expansive, the island spreading below, the sea visible on 3 sides, and the crater is nearby, venting steam and sulphurous gas. The ground is warm beneath our feet, and the smell of sulphur is strong, and the sense of being on an active volcano, one that could erupt at any moment, is both frightening and exhilarating. Etna has shaped Sicily's history, its eruptions destroying towns and farms, but also creating the rich volcanic soil that makes the island so fertile, and the people here live with the mountain, accepting its power and its gifts. We drive south across Sicily to Agrigento, where the Valley of the Temples preserves some of the finest Greek ruins outside Greece itself. The valley is actually a ridge, and along it stand the remains of 7 temples, built between 500 and 400 BC, when Agrigento was one of the largest Greek cities in the world. We visit in the evening, as the sun is setting, and the temples glow golden in the light, the honey-coloured limestone warm and luminous. The Temple of Concordia is the best preserved, its columns still standing, supporting the pediment, and the proportions are perfect, the classical Greek ratios creating a harmony that pleases the eye without conscious thought. We walk along the ridge from temple to temple, and the ruins are surrounded by olive and almond trees, and wildflowers grow among the fallen stones, and the combination of nature and architecture creates a beauty that is poignant, a reminder of civilizations that flourished and declined, of human ambition expressed in stone, still standing 2,500 years later. In central Sicily, near the town of Piazza Armerina, a Roman villa contains some of the finest mosaics of the ancient world, floor mosaics covering nearly 40,000 square feet. The villa, built in the 4th century AD, was a luxury residence, possibly for an emperor or a wealthy senator, and every room has mosaic floors depicting mythological scenes, hunting scenes, and daily life. The most famous mosaic shows young women exercising, wearing what appears to be bikinis, running and throwing weights and playing ball, and the figures are naturalistic and lively, full of movement and personality. Other mosaics show a circus race, the chariots careening around the track, and a great hunt with exotic animals from across the Roman Empire, elephants and tigers and ostriches. The colors are still vibrant, reds and blues and golds, the tiny tesserae fitted together so precisely that from a distance they look like paintings rather than stone. The villa was buried by a mudslide in the Middle Ages and was not excavated until the 20th century, and this burial preserved the mosaics, protecting them from weather and looting. Back in Palermo, we visit the markets, the ancient heart of the city, where commerce has been conducted for over 1,000 years. The Vucceria and Ballero markets spread through narrow streets in the old quarter, stalls piled with vegetables and fruits, fish and meat, spices and cheeses, and the vendors call out in Sicilian dialect, a language that mixes Italian with Arabic and Norman French, reflecting the island's history. The smells are intense, fresh fish and ripe fruit and frying food, and the noise is constant, vendors and customers haggling, negotiating, the ritual of buying and selling that has not changed in essence for millennia. We buy supplies for a picnic, fresh mozzarella and tomatoes, still warm from the sun, bread, crusty and dense, olives cured in brine, and we find a park overlooking the harbour and sit on a bench and eat. And the flavours are simple and perfect, the cheese creamy and mild, the tomatoes sweet and acidic, the bread chewy, and the meal feels like an expression of Sicily itself, direct and honest and generous. Italy is the home of pasta, and though its origins are debated, pasta in its modern form is definitively Italian, with hundreds of shapes and regional variations. We visit a small workshop in Sicily where pasta is still made by hand, using durum wheat semolina and water, nothing else. The pasta maker shows us the process, mixing the dough, kneading it until it is smooth and elastic, then rolling it thin and cutting it into shapes, or extruding it through bronze dies to create hollow forms like penne and rigatoni. The bronze dies give the pasta a rough texture that holds sauce, unlike smooth factory pasta made with Teflon dies. The pasta is then dried slowly, spread on racks in a room with controlled temperature and humidity, and this slow drying, taking days rather than hours, improves the texture and flavour. We watch the pasta maker work, his hands moving quickly and surely, shaping dough into fusilli by rolling it around a thin rod, and the skill is evident, the kind that comes only from years of practice, of making the same movements thousands of times until they become automatic. Olive oil is fundamental to Italian cuisine, used in nearly every dish, and Italy produces some of the finest olive oil in the world. We visit an olive mill in Tuscany, timed to arrive during the autumn harvest, when the olives are picked and processed immediately to preserve freshness. The olives are brought to the mill in crates, and they are washed and then crushed, traditionally with stone wheels, but now more often with mechanical crushers. The resulting paste is mixed slowly to allow the oil droplets to coalesce, and then it is pressed or centrifuged to separate the oil from the water and solids. The oil that emerges is bright green, cloudy with particles, and it smells intensely of olives and grass and pepper. This is extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed without heat or chemicals, and it tastes completely different from supermarket oil, fruity and bitter and pungent, almost aggressive, and it transforms any dish it touches. The mill owner lets us taste oil from different years and different olive varieties, and the differences are remarkable. Some oils delicate and sweet, others robust and spicy, each one expressing the terroir of its grove. Italian gelato is not just ice cream but a craft, made fresh daily in gelaterias across the country, using natural ingredients and less air than American ice cream, creating a denser, more flavorful product. We visit a gelateria in Florence, and the owner explains his process, starting with whole milk and cream, sugar, and fresh ingredients, fruit or nuts or chocolate. The mixture is pasteurized and then churned in a batch freezer at a temperature warmer than industrial ice cream, which keeps it soft and prevents large ice crystals from forming. The gelato is served at a slightly warmer temperature than ice cream, which allows the flavors to be more pronounced, and it is displayed in covered metal containers rather than piled high, because exposure to air degrades quality. We taste several flavors: pistachio made with Sicilian pistachios, hazelnut with Piedmontese hazelnuts, lemon with Amalfi lemons, and each one is intensely flavored, creamy but not heavy, and the texture is smooth and luxurious, melting on the tongue. Coffee in Italy means espresso, a small, strong shot brewed by forcing hot water through finely ground coffee under high pressure, and the ritual of espresso is woven into Italian daily life. We observe the morning routine in a bar in Rome, where locals stop for their espresso, standing at the counter, downing it in 2 or 3 sips, and leaving within minutes. The bartender works the espresso machine continuously, pulling shots, steaming milk for cappuccinos, which are drunk only in the morning, never after meals. The espresso is served in small, thick cups that retain heat, and the coffee is dark and concentrated, with a layer of crema, golden foam, on top. It tastes bitter and slightly sweet, and the caffeine hits quickly, sharpening focus and energy. We order our espresso, and the bartender serves it with a small glass of water to cleanse the palate, and we drink standing at the counter, feeling the warmth of the cup, the ritual connecting us to millions of Italians performing the same act at the same moment. The Renaissance was born in Italy, and its artists developed techniques that transformed painting and sculpture. In Florence, we visit a workshop where restoration artists work on Renaissance paintings, and they explain the techniques used by masters like Leonardo and Michelangelo. Tempera painting used egg yolk mixed with pigment, creating fast-drying paint that allowed detailed work but required quick execution. Oil painting, introduced to Italy from the Netherlands, used linseed oil as a binder, allowing slower work, subtle blending, and luminous colors. Fresco painting involved applying pigment to wet plaster, and the paint bonded chemically with the plaster as it dried, creating durable murals that lasted centuries. Sculptors worked in marble, carving away stone to reveal the form within, as Michelangelo described it. And the process required not just technical skill but vision, the ability to see the finished sculpture in the raw block. The restoration artist shows us a painting under magnification, and we can see individual brushstrokes, the layering of glazes, the underdrawing beneath the paint, and the evidence of the artist's hand is moving, a connection across 5 centuries. The marble used by Michelangelo and countless other sculptors comes from the mountains near Carrara in Tuscany, where white marble has been quarried since Roman times. We drive into the mountains, and the quarries appear as white scars on the slopes, massive excavations where marble is cut from the earth. The process begins with drilling holes and inserting wedges to split the stone along natural fractures, and massive blocks are separated and lifted by cranes onto trucks. The marble is pure white, with fine grain and few impurities, perfect for sculpture, and it is still quarried today using methods that combine traditional techniques with modern machinery. We visit a quarry where workers are cutting a block, and the scale is staggering, blocks weighing hundreds of tons, and the precision is impressive, cuts measured to millimeters, ensuring the block will fit specifications. The quarry floor is covered in white dust, and the air is filled with the sound of machinery, but there is also a sense of continuity, of doing today what Romans did 2,000 years ago, extracting stone that will become buildings and sculptures and monuments. In the forests of Piedmont, in northwestern Italy, truffles grow beneath the soil, a fungus that forms symbiotic relationships with tree roots, and finding them requires trained dogs and skilled hunters. We join a truffle hunter and his dog on a cool October morning, walking into a forest of oak and hazel, the ground covered in fallen leaves. The dog works methodically, nose to the ground, moving back and forth, and suddenly she stops and begins digging, and the hunter gently pushes her aside and digs carefully with a small trowel, uncovering a truffle the size of a walnut, knobby and brown, covered in soil. He brushes it clean and holds it to our noses, and the scent is powerful, earthy and musky, and slightly garlicky, impossible to describe but unmistakable. White truffles, the most prized variety, can sell for thousands of dollars per pound, and they are used sparingly, shaved over pasta or risotto, their fragrance transforming simple dishes into luxurious experiences. The hunter explains that truffle populations are declining due to climate change and habitat loss, and the tradition of truffle hunting, passed down through generations, is under threat, adding urgency to the hunt, a sense of preserving something that may not last. Venice was built on a lagoon where the land is soft mud and constructing buildings required innovation. The foundations of Venetian buildings rest on wooden pilings, tree trunks driven deep into the mud until they reach a more stable layer of compressed clay. The wood, submerged in oxygen-poor water and mud, does not rot but actually petrifies over time, becoming hard as stone. On top of the pilings, platforms of wood and stone distribute the weight, and then the buildings are constructed using lightweight materials where possible, brick rather than stone for walls. The system works, as evidenced by buildings that have stood for 800 years, but it requires maintenance, and the city is constantly sinking, subsiding millimeters each year, and rising sea levels threaten to flood it more frequently. We see evidence of this everywhere: high water marks on walls, shops with metal barriers to keep water out during aqua alta, the periodic flooding that occurs when tides and weather combine. Venice is fighting a slow battle against the sea, building movable barriers at the lagoon entrances, reinforcing foundations. But the outcome is uncertain, and the city's future is one of the great questions facing Italy. Opera was invented in Italy, in Florence, around 1600, when a group of musicians and intellectuals tried to recreate ancient Greek drama, combining music and theatre. The form evolved quickly, spreading to other Italian cities, and by the 18th century, Italian opera was the dominant art form in Europe. The great composers, Monteverdi and Rossini and Verdi and Puccini, were Italian, and their operas, Rigoletto and La Traviata and La Bohème and Tosca, are still performed constantly around the world. The Italian language itself is particularly suited to singing, its open vowels and rhythmic flow creating a natural musicality, and Italian opera tradition emphasizes beautiful singing, bel canto, where the voice is the primary instrument and everything serves it. We attend an outdoor opera in Verona's Arena, Aida, Verdi's grand opera set in ancient Egypt, and the production is spectacular. Hundreds of performers filling the arena floor, live horses and elephants, massive sets, and the music surging through the night air, and sitting in the ancient Roman amphitheatre, watching an Italian opera under stars feels like experiencing something essential, a connection to Italy's cultural soul. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is one of the most recognizable buildings in the world, famous not for its beauty but for its tilt, caused by unstable foundation soil. The tower was built as a bell tower for the adjacent cathedral, construction beginning in 1173, and the tilt became apparent before the building was finished, the soft clay and sand beneath one side compressing more than the other. Architects compensated by building the upper floors with one side taller, trying to correct the lean, but the tilt continued, and by the late 20th century, the tower was in danger of collapsing. Engineering intervention stabilized it, removing soil from beneath the higher side and allowing it to settle back slightly, and now the tower is safe, its tilt arrested at about 4 degrees from vertical. We visit on a clear afternoon, and the tower stands in the Field of Miracles, a green lawn also holding the cathedral and baptistery, all built of white marble. The tower's tilt is dramatic, clearly visible, and it seems impossible that it should stand, that gravity should not topple it, but it has stood for over 800 years and will likely stand for centuries more. Tourists pose for photographs, pretending to push it upright, a cliché but irresistible, and we join them, laughing, part of a tradition that connects millions of visitors across decades. Returning to Botticelli's Birth of Venus in the Uffizi, we spend more time with this single painting, perhaps the most iconic image of the Renaissance. Venus stands on a shell, blown toward shore by Zephyr, the west wind, and she is met by one of the Horae, goddesses of the seasons, who offers her a cloak. The composition is balanced, the figures arranged harmoniously, and the colors are soft and luminous, pinks and greens and golds that create a dreamlike atmosphere. Venus herself is modest, covering herself with her hands and hair, and her face is serene, beautiful, but not sexual, an ideal of beauty rather than a depiction of desire. The painting was commissioned by the Medici family in the 1480s, and it represents a moment when art began to move away from purely religious subjects toward classical mythology and humanist themes. Looking at Venus, you see not just technical skill, but a shift in thinking. The idea that beauty itself is worthy of celebration, that human form and classical knowledge deserve to be preserved and honored, ideas that would reshape European culture. We travel to Rome and enter the Vatican to see Michelangelo's ceiling in the Sistine Chapel, one of the supreme achievements of Western art. Michelangelo painted the ceiling between 1508 and 1512, working alone on scaffolding. He designed himself, painting while lying on his back or standing in awkward positions, the physical strain nearly unbearable. The ceiling depicts scenes from Genesis, the creation of Adam being the most famous, where God's hand reaches toward Adam's, their fingers nearly touching, and the image has become an icon, reproduced endlessly. But the entire ceiling is remarkable. 9 central panels showing the creation of the world, the creation and fall of man, and the story of Noah, surrounded by prophets and sibyls and ignudi, nude youths, whose purpose is decorative and symbolic. The colors, after recent restoration, are bright and vivid, far different from the dark tones people associated with the ceiling for centuries, and the scale is overwhelming. Over 5,000 square feet of painting, and the level of invention is staggering. Hundreds of figures, each unique, each demonstrating Michelangelo's understanding of human anatomy and movement. Standing in the chapel, looking up, your neck aching, you feel the weight of the achievement, the dedication and genius required to create this, and the sense of awe is appropriate, because this is art that transcends time, that speaks to something fundamental in human nature, the desire to create beauty and meaning. Returning to the Appian Way, we focus on its construction, the engineering that allowed this road to last over 2,000 years. The Romans built roads in layers, excavating down to bedrock or stable soil, then adding layers of sand and gravel and broken stone, each layer compacted, creating a stable foundation. On top, large basalt blocks were fitted together without mortar, their weight and fit holding them in place. The road was crowned, higher in the center than the edges, allowing water to drain, and ditches along both sides carried away runoff. The construction was labor-intensive and expensive, but the result was infrastructure that lasted, that allowed armies to march quickly, goods to move efficiently, and information to travel rapidly across the empire. The Romans understood that roads were power, that controlling territory required the ability to move people and resources, and the Appian Way was their first great road, the model for all that followed. Walking on these stones, still sound after 2 millennia, you understand the Romans' engineering genius, their ability to build for permanence, and the legacy is everywhere in Italy, in bridges and aqueducts and buildings that still stand, still function, testimonies to ambition and skill. Italy produces more wine than any other country, and the diversity is extraordinary, each region with its own grapes and styles, from the light sparkling Prosecco of Veneto to the heavy Barolo of Piedmont to the sweet marsala of Sicily. Wine in Italy is not precious but everyday, a normal part of meals, and even casual restaurants have extensive wine lists with affordable options. We visit a winery in Chianti, the region between Florence and Siena, where Sangiovese's grapes produce the classic Chianti Classico, marked by a black rooster on the bottle. The winemaker shows us the vineyards, the vines trained low, their roots digging deep into the rocky soil, and he explains that great wine comes from vines that struggle, that have to work for water and nutrients, producing fewer grapes but more concentrated flavors. In the cellar, oak barrels hold wine that is aging, developing complexity, and the smell is of wine and wood and thyme. And tasting wine directly from the barrel, you experience it differently, rougher and more alive than bottled wine, and you can imagine how it will develop, how the tannins will soften, and the flavors will integrate. For centuries, wealthy young Europeans, especially the British, undertook the Grand Tour, traveling to Italy to see ancient ruins and Renaissance art, to experience classical culture firsthand and complete their education. The tradition began in the 17th century and peaked in the 18th, and these travelers spent months or even years in Italy, visiting Rome and Florence and Venice and Naples, studying art and architecture, collecting antiquities, and socializing with other travelers and local aristocrats. The Grand Tour shaped European culture, spreading Italian art and ideas, creating demand for Italian goods and craftsmanship, and establishing Italy as the ultimate cultural destination. The tourists left accounts of their travels, letters, and journals and paintings, and their enthusiasm for Italy helped preserve monuments that might otherwise have been neglected or destroyed. Walking through the same sites they visited, seeing the same paintings and buildings, we are part of that tradition, pilgrims seeking beauty and knowledge. And though we move faster and see more superficially, the impulse is the same. The desire to experience Italy, to touch history, to be changed by beauty. The Romans built aqueducts to bring fresh water to their cities, engineering marvels that carried water from mountain springs across valleys and plains using gravity alone. Near Rome, sections of ancient aqueducts still stand, massive stone structures with arcades carrying the water channel high above the ground. The Aqua Claudia, built in the 1st century AD, brought water from over 40 miles away, and sections of it are still visible, the arches marching across the Campagna like a stone army. The engineering was precise, the gradient carefully calculated to maintain flow without excessive speed that would damage the channel. And the construction was monumental, using millions of cut stones fitted without mortar. At its peak, Rome had 11 aqueducts bringing over 300 gallons of water per person per day into the city, more than most modern cities provide, and the water supplied fountains and baths and private homes, making Rome a city of water, of gardens and pools, and the constant sound of flowing water. The aqueducts are monuments to Roman engineering and to the understanding that civilization requires infrastructure, that cities need water and sewers and roads, and providing these was the responsibility of government, an idea that shaped Western political thought. We take a ferry from mainland Italy to Sardinia, an island in the Mediterranean west of the peninsula, known for its beaches and ancient stone structures called nuraghe. The island is large and mountainous, with a rugged interior and a coastline of stunning beauty, especially the Costa Smeralda, the Emerald Coast, in the northeast. We drive along the coast, stopping at beaches with sand white as snow and water that graduates from pale turquoise to deep sapphire, so clear you can see fish swimming 20 feet down. The beaches are backed by granite rocks worn into fantastic shapes by wind and water, and juniper and myrtle grow in the crevices, their scent mixing with the salt air. We swim in the warm water, floating on our backs, looking up at the blue sky, and the sense of peace is complete. the world reduced to sun and water and sky, and for a moment, everything else falls away, and there is only this, the physical sensation of being supported by the sea, warmed by the sun, alive. In the Sardinian interior, thousands of nuraghe dot the landscape, stone towers built between 1800 and 500 BC by the island's ancient inhabitants. The nuraghe are made of large stones fitted together without mortar, forming beehive-shaped chambers, and many are still intact, rising 30 feet or more, their interiors accessible by narrow passages. The largest, Su-Nuraxi, near Barramini, is a complex of towers and walls, a fortified settlement that housed a community. We climb inside, ducking through the low entrance, and the interior is cool and dark, the stone walls thick and solid, and climbing the internal ramps to the upper chamber, we emerge onto the top, and the view extends across the island, fields and hills and distant mountains. The purpose of the nuraghe is debated, perhaps defensive towers, perhaps religious structures, perhaps elite residences, but their existence demonstrates a sophisticated society capable of monumental construction, and their survival for nearly 4,000 years speaks to the builder's skill and the quality of Sardinian stone. We return to Rome, the journey coming full circle, and the city greets us like an old friend, familiar now, its streets and monuments holding memories of our previous visit. We walk through Trastevere in the evening, and the neighborhood is livelier than before. Restaurants full, people spilling into the streets, laughter and conversation filling the air. We find a trattoria, a family-run restaurant with no menu, just whatever they are cooking that day, and we sit at a table on the sidewalk, and the server brings plate after plate, pasta with tomato and basil, lamb roasted with rosemary, vegetables grilled and dressed with olive oil, bread to soak up the juices, wine in a carafe, and the food is simple but perfect, flavors clear and honest. And eating this meal, in this place, feels like understanding something essential about Italy, the way life here values pleasure, not as indulgence, but as a necessary part of being human. We rise early and return to the Roman Forum before the crowds, entering as the sun rises, and the light is soft and golden, illuminating the ruins from the east, creating long shadows that define the shapes of columns and walls. The Forum is empty, except for a few other early visitors, and the silence is profound, broken only by birds singing in the trees that grow among the ruins. We walk the Via Sacra again, and the experience is different now, more intimate, less overwhelming, and we notice details we missed before, inscriptions on pedestals, patterns in the pavements, the way the light catches certain surfaces and makes the stone glow. Standing in the center, surrounded by these ruins, we think about continuity, about the fact that this place was the center of an empire, that decisions made here shaped the world, and that now it is quiet, a place for contemplation. And somehow that seems right, that power fades, but beauty and memory remain. Italian is not just spoken but performed, the language accompanied by gestures that add meaning and emotion. Italians gesture while talking, their hands and faces expressing nuance that words alone cannot convey, and the gestures are not random but coded, a language themselves. We observe conversations in cafes and piazzas, watching people talk, their hands moving constantly, shaping the air, punctuating statements, asking questions, expressing disbelief or agreement or frustration. An open hand moved up and down means, "What do you want?" Fingers bunched and shaken means, "What are you saying?" A hand held flat and seesawed means, "So-so." The gestures are universal across Italy, understood from Sicily to the Alps, and they add a physical dimension to communication that makes conversations visual, theatrical, engaging. Learning a few gestures, we try them, and Italians smile and respond. and the connection made through shared gesture, even clumsy gesture, is warm and welcoming. A reminder that communication is more than words, that humanity finds ways to connect across language barriers. In Florence, we climb to Piazzale Michelangelo, a terrace on a hill south of the Arno River, designed in the 1860s to showcase copies of Michelangelo's works and provide a panoramic view of the city. We arrive as the sun is setting, and the terrace is crowded with people, all facing the same direction, watching the sky change color. Below, Florence spreads across the valley, the Duomo dominating, its dome dark against the orange sky, and the Arno reflects the sunset, a ribbon of light through the city. As the sun drops behind the hills, the sky transitions from orange to pink to purple, and the city lights begin to appear, windows and street lamps, and the Duomo is illuminated, glowing white and gold, and the sight is so beautiful it hurts. The kind of beauty that makes you catch your breath, and standing here with dozens of strangers, all silent, all watching, we share a moment of collective appreciation, of recognizing something larger than ourselves. Venice floods periodically, when high tides and certain weather conditions combine to raise the water level in the lagoon, and the water flows into the city, flooding street, Marx Square, and lower-lying areas. This phenomenon, called acqua alta, is becoming more frequent due to sea level rise and subsidence. We experience a minor flood, the water rising to ankle depth in parts of the city, and the Venetians respond calmly, setting up raised walkways made of planks on metal frames, allowing people to cross the flooded areas without getting wet. Shops have metal barriers they slide into place to keep water out, and residents wear rubber boots and go about their business. The flood lasts a few hours, and then the tide recedes, the water draining back into the lagoon, leaving behind a salty smell and damp pavement. The experience is strange and slightly surreal, walking through a flooded city, but the Venetians take it in stride, a regular inconvenience in a city built on water, and their resilience is impressive. The determination to preserve their city despite the challenges, to continue living in this impossible, beautiful place. In Italy, family and food are inseparable. Meals are social events where families gather, talk, and strengthen bonds. Sunday lunch is a tradition, extended family coming together for a meal that lasts hours, multiple courses, conversation flowing between bites. We are invited to a Sunday lunch by an Italian family we befriended, and the meal begins at 1 in the afternoon and continues past 6. The table is crowded with food, antipasti, pasta, meat, vegetables, salad, dessert, each course served and savored, and wine flows continuously, and the conversation is loud and warm. Multiple people talking at once, stories and jokes and debates, and children run in and out, and the sense of connection, of belonging, is palpable. Food is not just fuel but a medium for love. The grandmother's carefully made pasta, the father's grilled meat, the daughter's salad, each dish an offering, and eating is an act of acceptance, of gratitude, of participation in the family. Leaving, we feel honored, welcomed into something precious, a tradition that has sustained Italian culture for generations. Returning once more to the Pantheon, we focus on its geometry. The way its design creates a sense of harmony and completeness. The interior is a perfect sphere, the diameter of the dome exactly equal to the height from the floor to the oculus, and this proportion creates a space that feels balanced, whole. The dome's thickness decreases as it rises, and the coffers, recessed panels in the ceiling, reduce weight while maintaining strength. Standing in the center, looking up at the oculus, you are at the exact center of a sphere, and the sense of being enclosed in a perfect geometric form is both mathematical and spiritual, a physical expression of order and reason. The Pantheon has influenced architecture for 2,000 years, inspiring countless domed buildings, from Renaissance churches to modern government buildings, and standing inside it, you understand why. The way the space makes you feel both small and significant, part of something larger, a connection to the cosmos itself. Off the northern coast of Sicily, the Aeolian Islands rise from the sea, volcanic islands where one volcano, Stromboli, is continuously active, erupting every few minutes, with small explosions that send lava and ash into the air. We take a boat to the island in the evening, and as we approach, the volcano is visible, a dark cone against the darkening sky, and every few minutes, an orange glow appears at the summit, and a small eruption sends lava arcing into the air, falling back down the slope in glowing streams. We hike partway up the volcano with a guide, climbing through the darkness, the path steep and rocky, and from a safe distance, we watch the eruptions, the explosions loud enough to feel in our chests, the lava bright against the black rock. The sense of witnessing raw geological power is humbling, a reminder that the Earth is alive, constantly changing, that forces beyond our control shape the land we live on. And standing on the slope of an active volcano, watching it erupt under stars, is both frightening and exhilarating. Italy is synonymous with fashion and design, Milan especially being a global capital, home to brands like Armani and Prada and Versace. Italian design is characterized by a balance of form and function, aesthetics and craftsmanship, a belief that everyday objects should be beautiful as well as useful. We visit the Triennale Design Museum in Milan, where exhibits showcase Italian design from the 20th century, furniture and lighting and household objects that have become icons, Alessi corkscrews and Vespa scooters and Olivetti typewriters. The attention to detail is extraordinary, every curve and line considered, and the objects are not just functional but expressive, reflecting Italian values of beauty and quality and style. Italian fashion operates on the same principles, clothing designed to flatter and to last, made with fine materials and expert tailoring, and the result is an aesthetic that has influenced global fashion, the idea that style is not frivolous but essential, an expression of identity and culture. In response to the spread of fast food and industrial agriculture, Italy gave birth to the slow food movement in the 1980s, advocating for traditional food production, biodiversity, and the pleasure of eating well. The movement started in Piedmont and spread globally, and its principles are deeply Italian. The belief that food should be produced sustainably, should taste good, and should be accessible to all. We visit a slow food presidium, a farm protecting a rare breed of pig that was nearly extinct, and the farmer explains how he raises the pigs, letting them roam in oak forests, eating acorns and roots, growing slowly, and the meat is prosciutto, cured for years, and tasting it, you understand the difference, the depth of flavor, the complexity that comes from time and care. Slow food is more than a movement, it is a philosophy, a rejection of speed and convenience in favor of quality and tradition, values that resonate beyond food, suggesting a different way of living, one that honors the past while moving thoughtfully into the future. On the Italian Riviera, 5 villages cling to the cliffs between mountains and sea, the Cinque Terre, connected by a coastal hiking trail and a train line. The villages, Monterosso, Vernazza, Corniglia, Manarola, and Riomaggiore, are painted in bright colors, their houses stacked on the steep slopes, and terraced vineyards climb the mountains above, producing wine from grapes grown on nearly vertical slopes. We hike the trail between villages, the path cut into the cliff face, offering views of the sea hundreds of feet below, and the trail is challenging, steep and rocky, but the views are worth the effort, the villages appearing around each bend, and the sea extending infinite and blue. We stop in Vernazza, considered the most beautiful village, and it is tiny, just a few streets around a small harbour where fishing boats are pulled onto a pebble beach and a church sits on a rocky promontory, and the houses rise behind in pastel shades. And the scene is postcard perfect, almost too beautiful, and yet it is real. People live here, children play in the square, fishermen mend nets. Lake Garda, Italy's largest lake, lies at the foot of the Alps in northern Italy, and its shores are lined with resort towns and olive groves and lemon terraces. The lake's climate is moderated by its size and depth, creating a microclimate where Mediterranean plants grow despite the northern latitude, and lemons are cultivated in greenhouses called limonee, terraced structures that protect the trees in winter. We visit Sirmione, a town on a peninsula extending into the lake, and at the tip of the peninsula, Roman ruins overlook the water, the Grotta di Catullo, remains of a large villa supposedly owned by the poet Catullus. The ruins are extensive, foundations and walls covering acres, and olive trees grow among the stones, and the view across the lake is serene, the water calm and blue, the Alps visible in the distance. We sit among the ruins, and the peace is profound, the combination of history and nature creating a space where time seems suspended, where the concerns of the modern world fade, and there is only this moment, this view, this light. Hospitality is central to Italian culture. The concept of welcoming guests, of making them comfortable, of sharing what you have, and this extends beyond family to strangers, to travelers, to anyone who comes seeking shelter or a meal. We experience this repeatedly, shop owners offering espresso, strangers giving directions and walking us partway to ensure we find our destination, restaurant servers treating us like family, insisting we try a dish or a wine. The generosity is not transactional, not seeking anything in return, but an expression of values, the belief that people should help each other, that community matters, that we are all connected. This hospitality makes traveling in Italy a pleasure, creating moments of connection that transcend language and culture, reminders of our shared humanity, and we carry these interactions with us. Small kindnesses that accumulate, that change how we see the world and our place in it. On the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo painted the Last Judgment between 1536 and 1541, 24 years after completing the ceiling. The fresco depicts the second coming of Christ and the apocalypse, over 300 figures rising to heaven or falling to hell, and the vision is terrifying and awe-inspiring. Christ at the center as judge, muscular and powerful, his hand raised, and around him the saved and the damned, angels and demons. The whole narrative of Christian eschatology rendered in a single overwhelming image. The painting was controversial from the start, the nudity considered inappropriate by some, and later artists were commissioned to paint drapery over some figures, though much of this was removed during restoration. Standing in the chapel, looking at the Last Judgment, you feel the weight of Michelangelo's vision, the darkness and the hope, the fear of judgment and the promise of salvation, and the power of art to address the deepest questions of existence, to give form to the formless, to make the invisible visible. The Po River, Italy's longest, flows from the Alps in the west to the Adriatic Sea in the east, creating a broad, fertile valley that is Italy's agricultural heartland. The valley produces rice and wheat, corn and tomatoes, and it is also home to Parma ham and Parmigiano Reggiano, cheese and balsamic vinegar from Modena. We drive through the valley, and the landscape is flat and intensively cultivated, fields stretching to the horizon, punctuated by farmhouses and irrigation canals. The Po itself is wide and slow, its water brown with sediment, and it has shaped the region's history, providing transportation and water but also flooding regularly, requiring levees and constant management. The valley is less visited by tourists than Tuscany or the coast, but it is essential to understanding Italy, the agricultural base that supports the country, the food production that is central to Italian culture, and driving through, seeing the fields and farms, we appreciate the work that goes into creating the ingredients that make Italian cuisine renowned worldwide. Trying to define the Italian spirit is difficult, because Italy is diverse, each region with its own identity, its own dialect, and traditions and history. But certain qualities emerge: a love of beauty, an appreciation for craftsmanship, a respect for tradition balanced with a willingness to innovate, a focus on family and community, a belief that life should be enjoyed, that food and wine and conversation and art are not luxuries but necessities. Italians live with history. Ancient monuments are part of the daily landscape, and this creates a sense of continuity, of being part of something larger and older than oneself. But there is also a vitality, a passion, a refusal to take things too seriously, an ability to find joy even in difficult circumstances. Traveling through Italy, experiencing its cities and countryside, its art and food, its people and culture, you feel this spirit, this combination of the ancient and the modern, the serious and the playful, and it is infectious. It changes you, and you leave carrying a piece of it, a reminder of what life can be when beauty and pleasure are valued as much as work and achievement. Our journey through Italy ends where it began, in Rome, standing once again in front of the Colosseum as evening falls. The monument is lit now, golden light illuminating the arches, and the tourists have thinned, and the noise of the city has quieted, and we stand and look at this structure that has endured for 2,000 years, that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, that has survived earthquakes and wars and the simple passage of time, and it remains a testament to human ambition and skill. We have traveled from north to south, from Alps to Mediterranean, from ancient ruins to Renaissance art to modern cities, and everywhere we have found beauty, in landscapes and architecture, in food and wine, in the warmth of people who welcomed us. Italy has given us moments we will carry forever, images and sensations and flavors, and as we stand here in the Roman evening, we feel gratitude for the chance to experience this place, this country that has contributed so much to human culture, and we feel sadness that the journey is ending, but also satisfaction, knowing that we have seen and tasted and touched something essential, and that it will stay with us, woven into our memories, a permanent part of who we are. The train that will take us to the airport is waiting. The platform is quiet in the late hour, and our footsteps echo as we walk toward the car. Behind us, Rome settles into night, the streets emptying, the monuments standing silent under stars, continuing their ancient vigil. The Colosseum's arches hold darkness now, and somewhere in the Forum, shadows pool between columns, and the Tiber flows unseen, carrying the city's reflections toward the sea. Italy remains, patient and enduring, its hills covered with olives and vines, its coasts meeting the Mediterranean in 1,000 curves, its cities holding stories in every stone. We have walked through a fraction of it, seen a small portion of what exists, but what we have seen has changed us, has shown us that beauty and history and culture matter, that they nourish something essential in the human spirit. And so we board the train, settling into our seats, watching through the window as the lights of Rome fade into the distance, carrying with us the images and sounds and tastes of Italy, the warmth of its sun and the flavor of its bread, the echoes of bells and the scent of espresso, the colors of the sea and the texture of marble under our hands. The journey ends, but the memories remain, and in quiet moments, we will return, not in body, but in mind, to the places we have been, the things we have seen, the country that welcomed us and showed us what it means to live with beauty, to honor the past while embracing the present, to find joy in simple things well made. Italy endures, and in our hearts, so does the journey.